I moved to a quiet town a few weeks ago. I wanted to escape the noise of the city and find some peace. My new house was 2 stories with a wraparound porch. The gardens around it were filled with flowers. I thought it would be my sanctuary, a place I could relax and feel safe. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. On my 3rd night, I heard faint tapping noises. It was a rhythmic sound, like someone knocking on wood. I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was just the house settling. I rolled over and closed my eyes, hoping to sleep. But the tapping kept going, louder this time. It was hard to dismiss. Over the next few days, I felt more uneasy. My books were not where I left them. I thought I saw shadows moving past my window. One evening, I was in the kitchen when I noticed movement outside. I rushed to look, but there was nothing. Just the empty yard, too quiet. My heart raced. Was I just imagining things? Then came the whispers. Soft voices floated in the air at strange hours. I listened closely, but I couldn't understand them. Was it the wind? My imagination? I wasn't sure. It felt like someone was watching me. I wrapped myself in a blanket, feeling cold. My heart pounded. I forced myself to breathe slowly. I told myself, it's just an old house. I wanted to feel safe, but the whispers seemed real. One night, I built up the courage to check the attic. My hands shook as I turned the knob. I half expected to find a raccoon or something. When I opened the door, it was dark and empty. The quiet felt heavy. The tapping continued. One night I crawled into bed, desperate for sleep. The noises grew louder, matching my heartbeat. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Then it stopped. The silence felt strange. That's when I heard a voice, clear and cold. "Why are you here?" My heart sank. I sat up in bed, feeling icy fear wash over me. The house felt alive, like it was waiting for me to respond. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a dream, but I felt trapped. I thought about running away, but where would I go? I had just started a job, and I wanted to be brave. But every night was the same. The tapping, the whispers, the feeling of being watched. I couldn't stay in bed anymore. I had to know what was happening. I got out of bed and walked to the attic door again. My heart raced. I reached for the knob and turned it slowly. Behind the door, the darkness felt thick and heavy. What would I find? Would it finally answer my questions, or confirm my worst fears? I hated the idea of opening my eyes, but I felt like I had no choice. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. My heart raced as I prepared to face whatever lay beyond that door. As I stepped into the attic, the darkness swallowed me. I squinted, trying to see anything in the dim light. Dust motes danced in the air from a single cracked window. My pulse quickened as I moved cautiously, feeling every creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. The air felt cooler up here, like I had stepped into a different world. I glanced around, noting the old trunks and antique furniture shrouded in sheets. Part of me wanted to turn back, but the need to understand was stronger. I had to find out what was behind all the strange occurrences. I moved deeper into the attic, eyes darting everywhere. That's when I noticed a small chest tucked into the corner. The wood looked worn, and it had a rusty lock. Something inside me sparked with curiosity. I knelt by it, heart racing with anticipation. What if it held answers? I reached out to touch the chest. That's when I heard it. A soft whisper, almost melodic. I jerked back, heart thumping wildly. Was it the wind? I held my breath, waiting for more, but there was nothing, just silence enveloping the attic again. I shook my head, trying to push the fear down. The whispers were probably in my mind. I leaned closer to the chest, fingers tracing the intricate carvings. I needed to know what was inside. Finding something significant might help make sense of everything. Just then, I heard it. Light tapping like fingernails on wood, coming from above me. I froze. The sound was different, sharper, almost frantic. It sent a chill down my spine. I slowly looked up toward the slanted ceiling. Nothing but shadow greeted me. Slightly shaken, I turned back to the chest. I fumbled in my pocket for something to pry it open. I found a small screwdriver and went to work, forcing the lock open. My hands shook with anticipation and dread. As soon as it clicked, I lifted the lid. Inside was a tattered journal. I picked it up, the pages yellowed and crinkled. I opened it to the first entry, my heart pounding. The handwriting was elegant but shaky, and the dated entries spanned decades. The first lines chilled me. It detailed the life of someone who once lived here, someone who had experienced things that mirrored my own. As I read on, a name caught my eye. Elena. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. The last entry was dated just before the previous owner had sold the house. It ended abruptly, the last words trailing off as though the writer was interrupted. Just then, the whispers returned, but this time they were louder. They were no longer soft and incomprehensible. They pleaded, and I finally recognized them. Leave. Now. Suddenly, everything went dark. I felt a draft rush past me and the attic door slammed shut. I was alone and trapped, the darkness closing in around me. The voices grew more urgent. Get out. I lunged for the door, panic rising. What had I awakened? I pounded on the attic door, my heart racing. It felt like the walls were closing in. Every creak echoed down the hallway, mocking my desperation. Let me out, I shouted, my voice cracking. No response. Just the whispers, swirling around me like a storm. With a final shove, I turned my back to the door and focused on the chest. I hadn't exactly explored it thoroughly. I threw it open and rummaged through the journal again, desperately flipping pages. I was hoping for some kind of instruction, something that might explain this madness. The final few pages were blank, but there were marks, deep scratches almost, as if someone had tried to write, but gave up. My fingers traced the jagged lines when I felt a sudden chill pass through me, followed by a sharp realization. The entry about Elena wasn't just a story. It was a warning. I looked around, hoping to find a way out, my eyes landing on the only source of light, the window. Could I fit through? It was a long shot, but I had run out of options. The whispers swirled again, louder this time, urging me to leave. Please. Just as I turned toward the window, I heard the tapping again, more urgent now. It was coming from the ceiling. I glanced up to see shadows shifting, forming outlines of shapes that seemed almost human. My breath quickened. I didn't want to believe my eyes, but there was no denying what I was seeing. Get out! A voice boomed now, deeper, more commanding than any whisper. It felt like it resonated within my chest. I looked at the door one last time, weighing my options. The figures in the shadows were shifting closer, their features hidden behind dark, swirling mist. No! I yelled, taking a step back. They seemed to pause, as if my fear was a challenge. Then the air thickened and I felt an overwhelming urge to scream. I turned away from them, darting toward the window. My hands fumbled on the ledge and I pulled myself up, adrenaline fueling my movements. But as I hoisted myself up, a weight slammed on my shoulder, dragging me back. I twisted, feeling a cold hand grip my arm. I looked into the shadows and saw something emerge. A face half-formed, eyes glaring with an intensity I had never witnessed. Stay, it hissed, and in that moment the fear gripped me like an icy fist. I thought of Elena's words, the warnings hidden in those pages. I needed to escape. I needed to find out what happened to her. With one swift movement, I thrust myself through the window, feeling the jagged glass slice my arm. I fell, landing in the overgrown garden below, pain shooting through me. I looked up, breathless. The attic stood silent now, but I could still hear the whispers. They echoed in my mind, more real than before. Find us. Find out what happened. As I pulled myself to my feet, I realized this was just the beginning. There were things I still needed to uncover. I had to return to the house. But first, I would have to stop the bleeding and catch my breath. And then, I had questions that demanded answers. Just before I walked away, I took one last glance at the attic window. A shadow loomed behind the glass, and I could have sworn it waved goodbye. I stumbled away from the house, the cool night air stinging my fresh wounds. I pressed my hand against the cut on my arm to staunch the bleeding, but I knew it was only a temporary fix. My heart was still pounding, but with each step, it began to slow. It felt almost like a lull, like my mind was trying to forget everything that had just happened. But I couldn't forget. Not yet. I needed answers, and the only place to find them was back inside that house. The weight of the attic whispers hung over me, tugging at my thoughts. Find us, they had demanded, and it felt like a pact I couldn't ignore. I walked along the side of the house, avoiding the overgrown shrubs and branches that snagged at my clothes. Shadows danced under the moonlight, but I steeled myself against the impending dread. This was my home now, whether I liked it or not. The back door creaked as I pushed it open, the familiar scent of dust and mildew greeting me. I hesitated, then stepped inside. The air was still, but the whispers seemed louder now, vibrating off the walls. I moved cautiously, half expecting something to lurch at me from the darkness. As I crept toward the stairs, I noticed the light from my phone illuminating something on the floor. I bent down and felt my stomach twist. It was a small silver locket, tarnished and worn. I flipped it open, and my breath hitched at the sight of a tiny photo. It was Elena, the same girl from the journal. No one else had mentioned her, and I was certain I hadn't seen anything about her outside of those pages. Once again the whispers surged in my mind, urging me to solve the puzzle. I tucked the locket in my pocket, the cool metal grounding me as I climbed the stairs, each creak echoing like a warning. Reaching the attic door, I hesitated, remembering the faces that had loomed above me, their shapes melding into one another. Common sense told me to turn back, but curiosity propelled me forward. I pushed the door open, and the attic welcomed me with its stale air. Inside, everything was as I had left it. Yet it felt different. The shadows seemed darker, thicker, and I felt the temperature drop as I stepped in. Just then I noticed a faint shimmer near the chest. Something was there. I approached cautiously, and as I got closer the shimmer became more defined, a faint outline of a figure standing beside the chest, its features obscured but its presence undeniably there. Panic surged through me, mixing with a chilling sense of familiarity. "Please," I said, almost as if begging it to reveal itself. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head, and moments felt like a lifetime. It reached out, and I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. Then it spoke. Not with words, but a wave of emotions that crashed over me like a wave. Fear, sorrow, urgency. "Find the truth," it seemed to say before dissolving into the air, leaving only a lingering chill. Suddenly the words from the journal replayed in my mind. The truth should remain in darkness. Before I could think, the attic door slammed shut, cutting off my escape. I spun around, panic bubbling up inside me. I was trapped. Then everything went dark. The darkness felt thick, like a heavy blanket suffocating me. I tried to reach for the door, to find the handle, but I could see nothing. My heart was pounding again, louder now, echoing in my ears like a warning bell. I stood there, frozen, my skin prickling with fear. That's when I heard it. A soft, rustling sound, barely discernible beneath the weight of silence. It came from the far corner of the attic, near the chest. I shifted my weight, squinting into the dark, willing my eyes to adjust. The chill of the air stung my exposed skin, but I forced myself to take a step forward. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No response. Just that rustling. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. My imagination was racing, planting shadows in my mind. I reached into my pocket for my phone, praying the flashlight would cut through the gloom. The screen flickered to life as I turned it on, illuminating the dusty corners of the attic. The chest sat silently, its lock still broken, but no figure lingered beside it now. My heart sank a little. Then I saw it. Something moving inside the chest. The rustling had stopped, but now an unease settled in my gut. My breath quickened. Something was there, just out of sight. I took another cautious step closer, raising the light to the chest. That's when I saw it. Papers, a stack of old letters scattered amid the dust. My first impulse was to reach for them, but my instinct screamed at me to be careful. I bent down, and the floor creaked under my weight. "Do you see them?" A voice spoke softly from behind me, fragile and haunting. I froze, the hair on my neck stood up. I turned quickly, desperately swinging the flashlight around, but found nothing. The space remained empty, though the presence felt heavier, more intense. "Is anyone there?" I shouted, though my voice quivered with uncertainty. Back at the chest, I pulled a letter from the pile. It was yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. I read the first few lines aloud. "Dearest Elena, I have found the truth beneath the floorboards." The words sent ice coursing through my veins. Elena again. How had she been connected to this place? I felt as though I was standing on the edge of something dark and terrible. Each letter seemed like a whisper begging me to uncover it, but I couldn't shake the dread. Then something knocked against the attic door, hard enough to vibrate the wood. I jumped back, adrenaline flooding my system. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice now high and frantic. Nothing answered. The door remained shut, but I could feel a pull in my gut, a need to keep investigating despite the fear. I looked back down at the letter in my hands, heart racing. I couldn't back down now. As I scanned the rest of the stack, something caught my eye. A name at the bottom of a letter. It was signed in bold, dark strokes. "Yours forever, Marcus." An unsettled feeling gripped me. I had to know more about Marcus and his connection to Elena. The attic door still loomed behind me, a barrier that felt less like protection and more like a trap. With that, I decided, not only was I going to find out who Marcus was, but I also had to uncover what truth lay hidden in the darkness before it consumed me. I picked up another letter, my hands trembling. The words blurred on the page as I barely registered Marcus's name again. I forced myself to focus. I had to know what he had written to Elena. My adrenaline still pulsed through my veins, mixing with a growing curiosity. As I hovered over the letter, I caught another movement from the corner of my eye. This time, it was unmistakable. A shadow across the far wall, a fleeting figure that didn't belong. My breath caught in my throat. "Is someone there?" I called, trying to maintain a brave front. No reply, just silence. I hesitated again, glancing at the chest before returning my focus to the letter. As I unfolded it, my heart raced. "Elena," it began. "The secret I uncovered is more dangerous than I could have imagined." Dangerous. The word echoed in my mind. What had Marcus gotten them into? I felt a fresh wave of anxiety wash over me. I pressed on, swallowing hard. The letter continued, detailing hidden passages and secrets buried beneath the house. I flipped it over, searching for more. That's when I heard it again. Rustling, but this time it was accompanied by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. My gut twisted and I held my breath. The noise grew louder, coming steadily closer. I spun around, aiming the flashlight at the attic door. "Who's there?" I shouted again, but the fear in my voice betrayed me. I took a step back, pressing against the cold walls of the attic. In that moment, the footsteps stopped. A silence fell, thick and suffocating. I could see my heartbeat reflected in the beam of light. My instinct screamed to run, but where? I was trapped in this attic, with something or someone shrouded in darkness. I turned back to the letters, hoping to find some solace in their words. But something else caught my eye. A small envelope tucked beneath the rest of the papers. It looked different, more ornate. My fingers shook as I pulled it out, the paper smooth under my touch. As I opened it, a chill ran down my spine. Inside was a photograph, black and white, faded. It showed a gathering of people in the very attic I stood in. It was difficult to make out their faces, but one figure stood out among the rest. A woman with striking dark hair, locked in a moment of laughter. My breath quickened. It was Elena. But beside her, another man, his expression obscured, though his intense gaze seemed to almost pierce through the faded image. My heart dropped. Was that Marcus? Before I could fully process what I was seeing, the attic door suddenly creaked open, revealing a narrow silhouette framed in the doorway. The shadow lunged forward, cutting through the light. I stumbled backward, the flashlight flickering violently. "Stay away!" I shouted, my voice trembling. The figure paused, and an eerie silence ensued. My grip tightened on the flashlight, but the darkness was wrapping around me, threatening to engulf me. I had to decide in that moment, confront the shadow or flee from the attic's grip. But in the midst of my fear, I was drawn back to the letters and the photograph. Whatever secrets lay hidden in this house were starting to unravel, but at what cost? The mystery felt deeper than just Marcus and Elena. Feeling trapped between the past and the present, I took a deep breath. Perhaps confronting whatever was in the dark would finally shed light on the truth I desperately sought. The figure stepped closer, and all at once I could see their features more clearly. A man, but not Marcus. His face was shadowed, a trick of the attic light, yet the unfamiliarity of him made my heart race even faster. "Who are you?" I managed to gasp, my voice barely rising above a whisper. He didn't answer at first. Instead, he tilted his head slightly as if studying me. I could make out the outline of his clothes, a dark jacket, worn jeans. "You shouldn't be here," he finally said, his voice low and steady. "I could say the same to you," I forced out, though my courage wavered. My grip on the flashlight trembled as the reality of my situation crashed over me. "Leave this house alone," he continued, stepping into the beam of light and revealing weary eyes. "It's not safe." That warning struck me like a punch. "Safe from what?" I demanded. I felt anger rising up, mingling with fear. "I have a right to be here." His mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. Marcus wasn't just after secrets. He opened doors better left shut." My mind raced. What did that mean? I thought of the letters, the hidden passages. "You know Marcus?" "Yes." He stepped closer again, and I instinctively backed away, the wall pressing against my back. I knew him well. Too well, unfortunately. His curiosity had a cost. "Who are you?" I asked again, feeling the darkness pressing on all sides. I couldn't let him know how terrified I really was. He hesitated, and for a moment his eyes flickered with something like regret. "I'm someone who tried to protect what's left. You need to leave before it finds you." "What's it?" I felt my voice crack, but I had to know. The night felt heavy, full of questions I couldn't fathom. The attic creaked again, this time as if in answer. A low rumble, followed by a sharp howl of wind from outside. The sudden draft sent a shiver down my spine, making me look toward the edge of the attic. My heart lurched when I caught a glimpse of movement in the darkness beyond the man. "Behind you!" I shouted, my instincts kicking in. The figure turned quickly, as if the sound alone set something loose in the night. But just then, the overhead light swung wildly, plunging us into darkness. I could hear his sharp intake of breath before the light came back. Only now the man was gone. Just like that, one moment he stood a breath away, and the next, he had vanished into thin air. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled backward, my flashlight flickering one last time before going out entirely. I was alone again in the gloom, the faint smell of dust and something else, something metallic, filling my nostrils. I fumbled in the dark, trying to get the flashlight working again. My heart thudded loudly in my chest and doubt crept in. Had I imagined the whole exchange? Then I heard it. A low, rumbling sound from the floor below, accompanied by the grinding of wood as if something heavy was moving. The house creaked under the weight of a new presence, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. Whatever secrets Marcus had unraveled were clawing back at me, and the urgency to find the truth became a deafening cry within my own mind. Just as I was about to move, the attic door swung open again, revealing darkness beyond. This time I didn't have to ask if someone was there. I already knew. I took a hesitant step toward the door, my heart pounding as the chilling air brushed against my skin. Suddenly, a loud crash from below echoed through the stillness of the attic, shaking the walls and sending a spiderweb of dust cascading from the ceiling. I froze, instincts screaming at me to run, but curiosity held me in place. The darkness beyond the door felt alive, pulsating with a foreboding energy. I recalled the man's warning. What was coming for me? The thought of retreating down the stairs flickered in my mind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the edge of something critical. I had to know. I took a deep breath, steeling myself as I stepped into the shadows. The air changed, felt thicker, almost electric. Barely holding my flashlight, I turned it on and scanned the narrow stairway. The faint beam revealed crumbling wallpaper and splintered banisters. Each groan of the wood beneath me felt like a whisper urging me to turn back. "I'm just going to investigate," I muttered under my breath, trying to calm myself. But with every step down, the reality of being alone in this house crept back in. My thoughts raced to the letters Marcus left behind and the secrets that swirled around this place like smoke. I reached the bottom of the stairs, standing in the dimly lit hallway. The source of the sound echoed again from the kitchen, a loud, frantic clattering, as if something had toppled over. I swallowed hard, edging closer. As I neared the kitchen, I could finally make out shapes, two large shadows moving about near the old oak table. I stopped just outside the doorway, panic bubbling within me. Was it the man from the attic or something worse? I peered inside, gripping the flashlight tightly. At first, my eyes couldn't register what I was seeing. It was a mess. Broken dishes lay scattered across the floor, and the chairs had been overturned. But then I noticed something more disturbing. A dark stain spreading across the tile. It oozed like ink, pooling beneath where a chair had fallen. But that wasn't what caught my breath in my throat. It was the figures. Two were hunched over, moving rhythmically as if performing some ominous dance. I couldn't see their faces, but even from the shadows, I felt their gaze fixate on me. Fear paralyzed me once more. "Go!" a voice shouted suddenly, cutting through my fear like ice. It was the man from the attic. But where was he? I could only hear him, his voice echoing as if it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The figures turned sharply, their movements jerky and unnatural. They were looking for me. Somehow they knew I was there. That's when I saw it. A small sliver of light, strange and out of place, shining from behind the kitchen counter. I had to decide quickly, confront whatever evil lay ahead or risk whatever was lurking in the shadows. Before I could linger on my decision, one of the figures lunged forward. I barely had time to react as I spun around, running back into the hallway. I could hear footsteps pounding behind me now, echoing in a mocking rhythm that matched my frantic heart. I sprinted up the stairs, fear propelling me faster than I ever thought possible, just as the shadows reached the landing behind me. I was almost to the attic door when, at the last moment, I glanced back. Their faces, their empty, hollow eyes, were locked on me. I stumbled through the attic door and slammed it shut, spinning the lock with shaking hands. It felt like a fragile barrier separating me from whatever horror had taken over the house. But as I leaned back against the door, panting heavily, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. The light from outside was fading, and I could see a figure standing by the window, watching me, waiting. The man from the attic, or something worse. As I took a step back, the door rattled against the force of something outside. The urgency surged in me again. I had to find out what was going on, and fast. My pulse raced as I pressed my back against the door, the rattle echoing in my ears. I strained to focus on the figure at the window, but it was too shadowy to identify. It stood still, almost like a statue, watching. I didn't want to move. I wanted to stay hidden, but something in me knew I couldn't hide forever. The rattling intensified. I gritted my teeth, my hands clammy around the flashlight. Slowly, I turned to face the window, the fading light casting eerie shapes across the room. The figure stood just out of reach of the last rays of sunlight. I had to know who, or what, it was. "Who's there?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Then a low chuckle cut through the stillness, chilling me to the bone. It was an unsettling sound, like something scraped across glass. I didn't dare step closer, but instinct urged me to get a better look. I sidled over, my heart thumping louder than ever. As I approached the window, the figure stepped into the dying light. It was the man from the attic. His face looked gaunt and stretched, eyes wide and hollow, but there was something almost familiar about him. "Find me," he mouthed, his lips twisting in a strange smile. Then, without warning, he turned and vanished into the darkness. Panic surged through me. I barely had time to process what had just happened when I felt a shuddering thud against the door behind me. I whirled around, breath caught in my throat. It felt as if something was trying to break through, each hit a warning bell, forcing me further into a corner. I needed a plan. I rushed to the small trunk in the corner, fumbling with the latch. Inside, I found a few old keepsakes and dusty notebooks. I tossed aside the clutter until something caught my eye. A worn-out diary, the pages yellowed and frayed. It had to be Marcus's. I flipped through the diary, the scrawled writing revealing snippets of his life, mundane details mixed with hints of darker times. But then, one particular entry made my stomach drop. It was dated just days before his disappearance. "I can hear them calling. If I don't make it back, look for me in the place where shadows gather," it read. The words felt like a lifeline and a death sentence all at once. I slammed the diary shut, just as another heavy thud echoed through the door. The wooden frame trembled. The shadows were coming for me. I had to confront whatever lay in the kitchen. The light from the counter called to me. Steeling myself, I grabbed the flashlight and opened the attic door just a crack. The hallway was dark, but I could see the kitchen ahead. The ominous clattering had stopped, replaced by silence. If there was a chance to uncover the truth, I had to take it. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out into the hallway, fully aware that the real danger wasn't behind me. It had only just begun. That was when I spotted it. A small, eerie glow coming from beneath the kitchen door. Something was waiting for me inside, and I had a feeling I had no choice but to face whatever dark magic had been unleashed in this house. As the glow beneath the kitchen door pulsed like a heartbeat, I felt my resolve quiver. The thudding noise behind me persisted, echoing reminders that whatever was outside would eventually break through. I clenched my flashlight, its beam my only means of visibility against the impending shadows. With a deep breath, I forced myself forward, reaching for the doorknob. It felt cold under my fingers, unnerving in its stark contrast to the heat radiating from my racing pulse. I turned the knob slowly, letting the door creak open just enough to peer inside. The kitchen was illuminated in shades of sickly green, the flickering glow emanating from something at the edge of the countertop. For a moment, it felt like stepping into a surreal dream. Tables piled high with dishes turned on their sides, a chair thrown back, and a dark liquid pooling beneath. It was the same stain I had seen earlier. But there, hovering just above the surface of the counter, was a shimmering orb, pulsating with a life of its own, as if it knew I was watching. My breath caught in my throat. It looked so familiar, yet so ominous, like something drawn from the subconscious of my nightmares. "Find me," the disembodied voice whispered again, echoing through the chaotic memories in my mind. I felt it ripple through me. There was something in there, something connecting me to this house, to Marcus, to Eleanor. "Who is it?" I shouted, my voice bold against the stillness. The orb flickered, and for a brief second, it flickered into an indistinct image, a woman. Dark hair cascading over her face, eyes filled with sorrow. It was Elena, her lips moving as if trapped in a silent scream. Suddenly, a crash resonated from behind me, and I spun back toward the door just in time to see it swing open, rattling in its frame as a figure emerged from the shadows. My throat tightened in panic, squeezing down on my breath. It wasn't the man from the attic, but a wide-eyed creature wrapped in darkness, its features hidden yet unsettlingly recognizable. It advanced towards me with a slow, dragging movement, and I instinctively took a step back, colliding with the kitchen table. "Leave now." It loomed larger each second, its voice a cacophony of disregard for life itself. Just as my feet began to lose their grip, the orb on the counter dimmed and surged towards me, illuminating the room in blinding light. I felt a connection. My hands reached toward the orb, and everything melted away. The world shifted around me, the kitchen fading into shadows while memories flooded in. I saw Marcus, scribbling warnings in desperation. I felt Elena's grief, her longing for release. I glimpsed whispers of darkness, a portal tearing through reality, a doorway that could unleash chaos. "Stay!" the creature roared, its shadow grasping for me, pulling back with every pulse of the orb. I could barely make sense of it, but suddenly clarity hit me like a shockwave. "I will find you, Elena," I murmured, words rushing out unbidden. The orb erupted into bright light, and just like that, I was propelled out of the kitchen through the door and into the living room, collapsing onto the floor as the light enveloped everything. A swirling vortex of sound, memories, and images slammed into me. Just as quickly it dissipated, the only noise remaining was a haunting whisper. "Find the truth." I gasped for breath, rattled and disoriented, my surroundings slowly settling into stillness. I was alone in the hall again. No sign of the creature, the orb, or that shadowed figure. The house stood silent, but I could still feel it in my bones. Like something had shifted, like I had barely scratched the surface of an insidious truth lying deep beneath the floorboards. And then it came to me. The note from Marcus. The secrets buried below. I remembered the locket, the letters, and the warning. Whatever horrors had taken place in this house were not finished with me yet. I stood slowly, a resolve hardening around my spine. I needed to confront the truth that had echoed through generations. Ignoring the fresh pulse of fear coursing through me, I turned back towards the hallway, sensing the weight of the house's past pressing in on me. With each step back to the attic, I felt the ghostly whispers urging me forward. Questions still hung in the air, vague echoes brushing against the fringes of my mind. What had Marcus uncovered? Would Elena ever find peace? And most importantly, what had I opened? As the attic door cracked open once again beneath my hand, the shadows felt both familiar and foreign, waiting, eager, impatient. Whatever happened next would change everything. All I knew was that the truth was waiting, deep within the darkness, promising answers that may not grant me peace, but would certainly free me from this endless cycle of fear, shadows, and the yearning to find what lies beyond the veil. And as I stepped inside, the echoes of the past wrapped around me, whispering the same plea. Find us.